ask everyone to stand and we're going to have prayer. Father, we thank you, Lord, for blessing us to be able to come out today to conduct the business of the county. We thank you, Lord, for our county government, and we recognize, Father, that all government is under your control. So we ask, Lord, that things that are done today, that they be acceptable in thy sight. We ask blessings of wisdom and knowledge. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let's pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We thank you. We will call our June 5th County Commissioners meeting to order. And at this time, we will have the approval of the minutes from May 1st, May 6th, and May 20th, which includes Equalization and Review Board minutes from April 29th, May 15th, and May 20th. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented. No one has any corrections.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and second that we accept the minutes as presented for May 1st, 6th, and 20th. Are there any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you. The next item on our agenda would be adjustments to the agenda. And we have several that we need to make. The first adjustment under item 18, we'd like to strike that. We're going to discuss that in closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143, 318A, 1 and 3.
Is that 818, Mr. Chairman?
318, 143, 318,
No, on the next
point 11A,
No.
1 and 3. And then we're going to add a number 18 back, which will be for budget item number 57. Then we want to add item 19 as personnel board recommendations. All right, if there are no other adjustments, we'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as modified.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion is second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay. Okay, our next item on the agenda are our delegations. Citizen comments. Our first citizen's comment will come from Mr. Thomas Hill.
Thomas Hill from 386 Daniels Road. I want to bid you all good morning, ladies and gentlemen, County Manager, County Commissioners. Wanted to stand before you today as I wear of many hats this morning. As it is no secret that being part of the Republican chairman, the Republican Party as a chairman, being part of the Old Courthouse Committee as the secretary, want to bring up some of the comments that I've been hearing lately. we passed a resolution not too long ago, and based off of old information as far as last year is concerned, Gates County was against the library. And we were that voice that said, we stand beside our citizens, we stand behind our citizens. Based off of the citizens and their comments, they have unified in support with the refurbishing of the old county courthouse. There's factors that's completely different this time. It has been said by some comments from residents of Gates County that we didn't need a library, but we do need to fix up the old county courthouse. And with this said, as their mouthpiece, I would like to declare to you all publicly that we passed a resolution unanimously giving support for this project and allowing whatever support we could offer to the commissioners in doing this. That's what we'd like to offer. On the second deal, I'll be very brief with this. Last year, I had a visitor from the planning board that came to my house and said that there was a complaint on the grass that was not cut. I said, well, the field that I have goats in, I'm not going to cut. That's what they eat. And he said that the complaint came from a neighbor. And I said, well, I've been targeted by hate mail. I've been targeted by hate comments on the internet. And after about 15 minutes of conversation, this gentleman was very understanding. He said, there's no need to even send you a letter. I see that your grass in your yard has been cut and maintained. We're going to consider this case closed. I know that the planning board is going to have another member soon. And I would like the commissioners to take a look at this and allow any of your members to be nominated or voted in, that they keep their political views aside. They work for the county, not for the Republican Party, not for the Democratic Party. They have a job to do, and I would ask that they do it rather bipartisan or no partisan. I personally do not want to be the target of hate mail, of hate calls coming in, and having visitors show up at my house let me know that there's nothing to report. That's a waste of county money, county time. So with that said, also, very last issue, 364 days exactly, I stood before this committee and I made a challenge. And with the decision of Gates County in November, they made their decision and it was well honored. Today I make a new challenge. Mr. Jernigan, you, sir, are part, unless I'm mistaken, you are part of the Animal Control Committee. I would like to offer and challenge you to a cup of coffee. I'd like to offer you a cup of coffee on my dime and have a sit-down talk with you about the concerns that the Republican Party has dealing with the local issues with the animal control. Would you honor me, sir, at a later time and date for a cup of coffee so we can discuss the issues?
Mr. Hill,
Yes, sir.
I drink 1 cup of coffee in the morning.
I understand.
At home.
I
But I
understand.
will sit down and have a glass of tea with you sometime.
Understood. My dime.
But I am not on that animal control committee
Okay.
that I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay. And who is, if I may ask? You are. Mr. Owens, would you also accept my offer for a cup of coffee or tea or dinner, lunch, whatever?
I'll consider that, Thomas.
Yes, sir. My cell phone number is made public, and you all certainly have it, I'm sure. Mr. Jernigan, I'd still like to have that cup of tea with you, sir.
No problem.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Thomas. All right, our next citizen is Mr. Earl Roundtree.
Earl Roundtree, Sunbury. I added notes to this, Kenny. Mr. Hill was talking about receiving hate mail. You know, I've been a controversial figure in the county for 45 years. I've never received any hate mail besides one time. And I forwarded that to the newspaper. I got 2 emails, and both of them came from the Gates County Republican Party. And I found that very strange. But I did want to put that on record. The only hate mail I ever got came from, and I am, of course, a Republican. I've been everything, but right now, today, I think I am. I ain't even ever sure how I'm registered till I vote. Kenny and Linda, I didn't have this, but I put it up here. We were in here talking, before Linda ever went on the board about the courthouse, keeping it stabilized. Kenny said as long as he was here, when you, Linda, was coming on, I think, as far as I'm concerned, we're doing the right thing, is to get that spending the money on the roof, getting that hopefully, I guess we're gonna get the concrete under it. Has that been passed yet? Do the concrete, the foundation. So that's what I want to see. Me personally, I don't see any real use for the courthouse right now, but that's just my opinion, and that's something I'm not worrying about. But Kenny said as long as he was on the board, when you, Linda, was coming on, that we were going to keep it stabilized, and I certainly appreciate that because that's what we're going to do. I was real reluctant. Oh, yeah, we do. I don't like to talk behind people's back, and I see we got the War Department here today. And I had two issues, but my first issue I got down here has to do with liability. And the reason I bring this up is that somewhere in the neighborhood, probably 90–95% of the people really don't have to worry about liability. The reason they don't have to worry about liability, the old term is you can't get blood out of a turnip. And I have hired the top biggest law firm in northeastern North Carolina to help me with issues. And I've learned a lot about personal liability through my lawyers. And number one is that if you own anything jointly, Kenny, make sure you and your wife own everything jointly. If you own it jointly, they can't sue you. Your retirement money, they can't get. All the money you got in the IRA, they can't touch. So you learn to hide, I mean, not hide, but you put all your assets. But from a county standpoint, I find this a little bit different. I think the county employees, and I know, you know, Mr. Mendenhall and all of y'all would be concerned about county liability, and the county's not sued that much. But Wednesday, well, this is Monday. Monday's when it rained, I guess. I don't know, Kenny. I get up, drink coffee 7 days a week. But we had a tree, a pecan tree that's over top of a three-phase line beside the vet hospital. And a limb fell out of that tree. Well, it didn't break the line. It was just hanging. But the bad thing about it was that it was touchable by an adult, and which would have been disastrous. A green pecan tree would blow you to pieces. Called Dominion, and now this day and time, you know, your call goes to somewhere in the world, finally gets back to the serviceman. But within 45 minutes of the call, within 45 minutes, the serviceman was out there and took that limb off. And part of the reason that they did that was they probably might have not done your house if you were out of power that quick. But it's the liability to Dominion. They had been reported there was a limb. They knew they had to be done. And about, you know, I started on this project of this major water leak, 2 major water leaks in my neighborhood. And I had told the commissioners, and I said, I'm not going to air out anything in public. Let's see what we can get done. Well, talking with DOT, talking to Jerry Jennings, division engineer, 2 weeks ago, and I want to thank Henry Jordan and Linda Hoffler and the other people involved, because Henry and Linda had 36 years in school system, and people she taught knew that Linda was no nonsense when she got to the classroom. We got the one water leak fixed, but 2 weeks later, the road hasn't been fixed. There's no dirt been put in, the shoulders have not been repaired. It's a liability. If my neighbor who's blind in one eye and can't see out of the other comes along, and this is a real individual, I won't call his name, but if he comes along with his tractor and it accidentally falls into that, the front wheel of the tractor throws him off, I'll be the witness. It wasn't fixed. And there's no sense in it not being fixed. And it's been there for 2 weeks since you fixed the water leak. My other concern is this: some of you, maybe, I don't know, maybe, but now all of you know, is the leak that has been going on for quite some time, and I'm talking about months or maybe years, at the end of Thicket Road and Highway 32. Well, I wasn't able to get an accurate account of how much water was being leaked on the Folly Road because it was hard to do. But we estimated that one was about 10 gallons a minute, but that was the estimate. The one on the Thicket Road, which has been there, and I was under the understanding that y'all were understanding that this had been fixed. So I got some help. And I went down there and done a scientific study. And that was, it was leaking, and we did it over and over, and it come up 8 gallons a minute every time. It's leaking 8 gallons a minute. Well, when you use 8 gallons a minute, it might not sound a lot. I got a 3rd grade education, but I did learn to use a calculator. 480 gallons an hour. Well, if you break that down, that's 11,520 gallons a day. I didn't do the month part, but I do know this, based on average water use in this county, that's enough for 86 homes that we got this leak right there on the road, bubbling up. Blind man can see it. When you do it out, it's 4,204,800 gallons a year. And that's only one leak, and nobody's bothered to fix it. And I think it's time that we have somebody needs to sit down with Timmy and the water department and come up with some kind of serious thing. We got some kind of, I don't know if it's a childish culture that they say, well, we're just stubborn, we don't want to fix it. A man come by who comes down that road, some of Renee's and my kin people, and he goes up and down that road all the time, and he stopped me yesterday and asked me, said, what are you doing fixing the water leak? And he made a joke about it. And he said, well, it's been there for I don't know how long. He says, I hadn't seen nobody down here. I know y'all want it done, but from a liability standpoint, the water department, any utilities are responsible for fixing the roads back the way they were supposed to be. That is a responsibility of the Gates County Water Department as a public utility. And it's not being done. It wasn't done this morning at 10 minutes to 9, and I just think it certainly needs to be done. And I can't see why. We had 2 water leaks, both of them leaking that much water right there in my neighborhood, and nobody was doing anything about it, and I don't understand it. Maybe I'm dumb, but I don't understand it. The other thing, in closing, I won't say any more about that because y'all already know about it, that this thing of getting these things done. House Bill 769, y'all got to understand, I got notes up here and I can't read them because I'm dyslexic. That's the reason I'm not an attorney today. My parents thought I was real stupid until I was grown because I couldn't learn things. And I found out later, I found a medical reason that I wasn't really stupid, Jack. But, it's hard for me to read my own writing. But House Bill 769, and Chuck's not here at the planning board, but great concern to Gates County and all the counties. But I guess that Bill Cook and Bob Steinberg had both changed their position on it. What it was basically, you would have to allow mobile homes anywhere in the county. It basically, our zoning, as far as keeping the communities up, if you had a community out here zoned with $300,000 houses on it, the way I understand it, John, and I know you followed it, if the state law would have passed, anybody could come in there and put in anything. So you might as well have done away with zoning. I had a phone call from Currituck County, a friend of mine over there on the commission. Matter of fact, he's a chairman. And he said, hey, have you talked to Bob about this? And I said, talking about Bob Steinberg. I said, no. And he said, well, you need to. I said, well, it sounded like to me that you've already done it. And he said, yeah, I called him every word I could think about. Well, Bob's a real good guy. And he heard from Currituck County, he heard from Pasquotank and Camden County, and I don't know what the status is right now. Bill Cook said it's not going to pass the Senate the way it was. But it was the type thing that slipped through, and it was completely done away with what I call Gates County zoning. But He's not here today. I told Chuck that I was going to bring in a torch today and hand it to him, but I didn't want to have anything burning in here. But I did tell Chuck that I was turning over the business of this county from the citizen standpoint to him, because I'm getting kind of old and tired of doing it. And Chuck is a good man to do it. I think that, so from now on, I wanted to let you know that I've turned all of this over to Chuck Brothers. And from now on, if any complaints will come from him and not me. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you, Earl.
Oh,
Okay.
excuse me, Henry. I hate to do this. I didn't put this on my notes, but we got Sandy here. It's been brought to my attention twice by two different people. And I think right now is a good time we have Sandy here, and you can say, well, I'll get back with you, that'll be fine. But I've been getting this report that, and I mentioned this to Sandy, that there was some complaints from the water department that their budget had been cut. And did you complain about that, Timmy? That your budget had been cut? I have two witnesses. Well, my question is to you today, to the finance. I thought the water department, when I paid my water bill, was, I don't know what you call it, it was self-sufficient. And that you have close to $2 million in reserves. And I couldn't understand, and I'd like for maybe you get back with me, I could not understand why we had a budget cut in the water department that was going to affect whether you bought equipment or not when you got close to $2 million in reserves. So I don't understand the budget process. I'd like for the county manager and Sandy Pittman to explain to me what it was. But if we got that much money, they should be able to buy anything they need. Thank you. I'm finished this time, Henry.
All right. Thank you, Earl. All right. Mr. Timothy Hatspat.
Good morning.
Morning.
If I don't mind, well, I'll talk to you afterwards about the leaks. The leak on Folly Road that was fixed, that was called in for a long time on Light Street. We rode Light Street, Light Street.
Would you put a barrel like that, Timmy?
No, I did not put a barrel out there. Robert put the barrel out there, and he called, and that's when I found out about that leak on the far side of the road. Yes, sir.
Direct your comments to the commissioners, please.
Okay. My question's a little bit on the budget, and I spoke with John yesterday about some concerns and some lines that were cut and money moved that I don't have much meat in my budget. I'll go line by line. The first one, the professional services, I had added some money because we do have some faulty hydrants. Some of them are on 4-inch, so they're not actually fire hydrants, they're blow-offs, but they do need repairs. That line was cut, and in order to do those repairs, it's going to be roughly $6,000 more to get those repairs made. Water analysis, the way Diener and Water Supply, they have changed some of their rules and regulations for sampling. Our disinfection byproducts, the TTHM and HA5s. The standard monitoring has changed from 1 sample per quarter to 4 samples per quarter. We're probably going to have to go through this year with that, and my quantitative results should allow me to apply for reduced monitoring to carry us back to 1 sample per quarter. But I had added a little bit of money to that because that's roughly $300 to $400 per sample for analysis. That line is going to come up a little bit short this year in the proposed budget. The maintenance supplies and materials, that was reduced to $40,000 per year. Just in chlorine alone, it ranges between $26,000 and $27,000 a year, which comes out of this line item. And just in the hardware and materials that we use, our tubing, our angle valves, corp stops, meters, and we've also been trying to sneak in some new meters to do meter replacements for some of these older meters that's starting to lag and not register, to the tune of about $20,000 to $21,000 a year. So I'm $7,000 to $8,000 shy in that line item just solely off of my have-tos, what I need to operate bare minimum. So that line item, at least $12,000 should get me through the year added to that and carry me back up to 52. That's my main operation line item, the main materials that we use and operate out of for my budget. Utilities, I've got a little bit of a question about that because we have been doing some pump repairs and had some pumps down, so I've had to plant all winter throttled way back. Longer pump times, but less head pressure and pumping water slower. Now we're back up to full capacity. All the pumps, wells are running on at 100%. So electricity costs, that's one of them that is kind of hard to calculate right now. Weather dictates it. The hotter it is during the summer, dry it is, the higher the cost is going to be just for pumps running longer. That's really the only questions I had as far as line item by line item. I did have some concerns about the 481 line item, the general fund reimbursement for administrative costs that the county absorbs due to doing business for the enterprise fund. I would kind of like you to revisit maybe the percentile that's pulled out of the budget and issued to some of the different departments. From my understanding and my research with the local government commission, you know, it should be done by justifying by man hours applied to working for the enterprise fund. Just something I would like y'all to entertain looking into a little bit better, just because of the way enterprise funds are treated through local government. And that's basically my concerns.
All right. Well, thank you, Timmy. We'll certainly take a look at these.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, the next item on our agenda would be our administrative reports. We have our county manager report. We'll turn that over to our county manager.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, present to you the May 2013 County Manager's Report. I'll go over some of the things to highlight what has occurred in the past month. The budget preparation for FY14 is complete. A balanced budget was presented to you all on May 1. Changes have been made and are a part of this agenda packet today pursuant to your instructions on that date. The budget as recommended with changes that occurred on May 1 is still without a tax or fee increase. It is still balanced. I attended the County Assembly Day in Raleigh and had a very good update from the Speaker of the House as well as the Senate, Tom Tillis, and there are a lot of things going on in Raleigh that we need to be apprised of. House bills 769 with zoning as well as tax reform are very big issues and will be big issues for local government moving forward. So I want to apprise all of that. The League of Municipalities as well as the NC Association of County Commissioners are working together to make sure that our local revenue streams are maintained and that they're maintained in a way that we can provide the services that we have historically provided, including schools, law enforcement, public safety, as well as general government. But it is a big issue. Tax reform is going to take a long time, and it is something that is moving very rapidly in the General Assembly. And as we know, rapid movement sometimes does not equate to thoughtful movement, so we need to be very cognizant of that. Operationally, we've worked on the budget this past month, and we have done a lot of implementation things to get some projects off the ground. And I'll turn your attention to the next page. We're establishing some employee committees on welfare, which is the old wellness committee, as well as morale and employee satisfaction. The second committee is a safety committee to look at workplace safety, to look at OSHA standards. You'll recall that we were fined not too long ago. So we want to look at that and see if we can't make some improvements to make it not only a safer work environment, but a more productive work environment. And then finally, the third committee is a continuous improvement committee. This budget, as presented, leaves a lot of pressure on departments to perform, and to perform in a meaningful way that results in budget dollars saved. So we need to support that quality improvement in a continuous fashion to find ways to save money, to be more efficient, to be more customer service oriented, and that committee is really charged with that, to bring those comments from the staff up to fruition with management to make those changes become effective and real, and to realize those staff type suggestions those tailgate-type meetings to lift those improvement suggestions that may have been lingering or could, would, should. Now they can come to fruition and be a positive benefit for the organization. Operationally, we've worked on lawn maintenance, emergency management of the vehicle fleet. We have changed the way we've done lawn maintenance. We're planning an emergency management scenario for a hurricane event. We certainly hope that we do not experience one, but a saying that I was told, and I really appreciate being told that, is that hope is not a strategy, so we need to be very in tune with being prepared, with emergency preparedness. And then finally, we're working on the vehicle fleet to make thoughtful replacements as need be. I want to give you a report on the 3 projects and where they stand. The library project remains open. We continue to have HVAC issues at that building. We're hoping that we can close that project out in July and give you a final report on the budget, on the status of the project. The sanitary sewer project phase 1, not a lot of progress was made in May. It remains outstanding. There are substantial change orders as well as the damage claim. We hope to be able to work on that this month in June and get that to a point where it can be closed as well. And then finally, the phase 2 sanitary sewer project, we have met with our grant agencies, the Rural Center, as well as the Golden Leaf, and we're working through some extensions of their terms and agreements, and it is progressing very well. I wanted to bring y'all up to date on all of those. Be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you, County Manager. Are there any discussions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on the acronym DMAIC. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, DMAIC is in your report on page 2. It means define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. It's a quality control mechanism where you do your problem identification, you measure the impacts of the defined problem, you analyze it, you improve it, and then you make it into a steady state, if you will. So the thought process is, and this is tied to the Continuous Improvement Committee, is that suggestions will be made that we don't go on gut feels, but we run the metrics of those thoughts, that we make thoughtful changes to rectify the issues that are brought forward, and then we keep doing it in the manner that makes sense to make it permanent, to make these changes become organizational and cultural changes, to instill that renewed commitment to performance and excellence that we all hope to see.
Thanks, John.
I have a question about the library. I was in there last week, and there was some issues about lighting. Some of the lights were not coming on like they were supposed to. I think maybe you need to check with Mrs. Familaw.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Hofford, we will put that on our list to look at. I will tell you that the library was designed with motion sensor lights in a large number of locations, and due to the windows in that building, some do not come on. And then when there are no windows, there are switches. You'll notice in the restrooms on the right, there are switches in there. So it may be something that staff can come back in and look at and make changes that would benefit the operation of the building. I think it was designed without the operational intent of who wants lights on and who wants lights off. Particularly on a sunny day, the motion sensors are going to turn lights on that really ought not be on, that don't need to be on. But I appreciate your concern, and I will take it forward.
Anyone else? All right, the next item on our agenda would be our financial report from our finance director, Sandy Pittman. We have 2 budget items here in the package, 48 and 49, I'm sorry, 3 and 50. And those are in this order. They're not included in the back part. We've got some others later.
I believe those are amendments that fell under the $1,000 threshold that were already completed and processed, and they're in your packet as an FYI.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
That is correct.
Thank you much. All right. Our next item will be our tax report from our tax administrator.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
You should have a copy of your collector's report for the month of May. Does everyone have a,
No, we don't
That's
have
the
one.
colored sheet. I noticed that I didn't have one of those.
We didn't get one.
We don't have one. It was in the email.
they were, oh, okay. I'm
I
sorry.
did see that one, I did open that one.
Okay. Well, I do apologize for that. If you'd like to go make a copy, it'll be fine. We are a little bit ahead of where we were last year at this time, and actually, as of the end of May, we were only, I think it was 0.3% below where we were at the end of June last year. So we're real pleased with that. There was one line item on the report that you, well, actually two, but the first line item that has a negative figure in it in your column the whole way to the right is just simply because more levy had been added in. That was due to motor vehicles, where we are adding levy every month. There was another figure down further in a prior year that also had a negative figure, and that was just simply due to the majority of what was paid that year was in interest. It wasn't general levy. We do continue to send parcels to Zacchaeus Legal Services. As of yet, we have not had to push things to the point of having any sales at the courthouse steps. People have been pretty cooperative in coming in and getting those paid, or at least setting them up on a payment plan and following that payment plan. We probably will have a few, maybe 12 to 15, that we will be sending him in the next probably week and a half. And we do continue to work with Travis Ellis. I believe on your report you'll see where we received a little over, I think it was a little over $1,800 this past month through Travis Ellis. But we're at least glad that people are coming in and paying and not actually having to sell the property and so forth. And we have received our September renewals with motor vehicles and are processing them. Hopefully, when we get through processing these will go on back to DMV to be billed as they're supposed to be, and we won't be put off again. So, if y'all have any questions, like I say, I apologize for you not having the report in front of you. And Diane is getting copies for those, so once you have a chance to look at them, certainly email me or give me a call if you do have any questions.
The credit card charge on there, that 8,003 something.
Okay, now that is not a charge, that is actually payments that we have received through the online service.
So that, okay.
Yes. So we will not start dealing with charges with credit cards due to the motor vehicle payments until those September renewals go out. And we have accounted for that in this upcoming budget. And of course, we'd like to think maybe we have accounted too much, but we'll see as the year goes on. That was kind of a wild card we had to deal with.
And on there, I believe in the May, there was about $50-some thousand worth of discoveries. Is that
That's motor vehicles, motor
So
vehicles.
we had that many vehicles that become due in May. I have, I'd be wondering what that distribution is between the 12 months. I just saw that number being real high, but
That's usually
Where's
about
that?
what we add
okay,
each month.
okay.
And like I say, we will be processing through the August renewals in-house. And even after we finish up with the August renewals, we'll still have a few that will filter in that we will have to process in-house that have been renewed late. But that number should be much smaller. And also in this process, I don't know if this is something I had brought to your attention before or not, but, you know, we do have a resolution on file where we do not send out any tax bills that are less than $2. We kind of work with what it was costing and so forth. But with this process with motor vehicles, because it's going through DMV, that will no longer apply to DMV. So those bills that we have been writing off the last couple of years due to being less than $2, we now will be bringing back in. But we will continue with that resolution on our annual bills.
So basically, if somebody owes 98 cents, they won't be able to get their tag unless they
Exactly.
clear that out.
And the 1% change in the tax thing there represents about $60,000 positive cash flow in the current year versus what we've been doing.
The, look back at that bill that was less than $2. Will that be called up? I mean, when a person's tags are due for renewal and they're going through this issue with DMV, will that $2 get collected that was owed?
Yeah,
It won't show on there?
yeah, that's the write-off from, you
Okay.
know, and I think it was about 2 years ago that we put that
Yes,
resolution
it was.
in place.
I had a question about the $1,800. Did that close with Thomas? was it Ellis?
Travis Ellis.
Does that, did that close a case, or was that a little bit here and a little bit
The
there?
majority of that did close a case that we've been dealing with for some time.
Okay, so one less over there. And then the other question about the discoveries, and I think I've asked this before, is that automobiles and something else?
If you look at the top of your report, you will see the column real and personal, and you will see there with discoveries, $413.51. That is other personal property that has been discovered, and the 53,262.74 is strictly motor vehicles.
Okay.
So when I look at this, Renee, if I look at the collections total on the right hand in the purple column, and I look at total collected, I guess that's the fire fees and the solid waste is in the 126 where they're not in the 117. Is that correctly?
Okay, I'm not,
In other words, in the next to the last
Okay,
column,
what you-
117,000.
what you see in that center section as far as collections is strictly your general levy. Your fire fees and whatnot are listed separately at the bottom.
Okay, I understand that, but where, on the third line below the columns where it says total collected real, personal, and motor vehicle levy, 126, that includes what now, compared to the
That is strictly your
117?
general levy.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any more questions or comments? All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Our next item on the agenda will be our personnel report. You have that before you. County Manager, do you want to discuss any of this, or we can see the changes that have been made, those hired, reassigned, and so forth. Did you have any comments?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, our departmental reports are in your package from our various departments. Our inspections, water, so forth. Are there any comments on those?
The last item, the last name on there with that date, 4/17/13, is that something, John, a question I'd be able to ask you in closed session?
No, sir. Commissioner, I believe it could be asked in open session. This employee that is on leave, Mr. John Spivey, is on leave without pay.
Okay.
He's a employee that is just on leave without pay.
Okay.
All right. There are no other comments. We have our correspondence, articles of interest, and county calendar. I do want to comment on June 6th, which is Thursday. We will have the Ad hoc Animal Welfare Advisory Committee at 7 p.m. I think it's going to be their first meeting. That will be carried out as a public meeting, is that correct?
Location?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. It is a public meeting, and the public is invited and certainly welcome to attend.
All right. Well, that will be in the Commissioner's room?
Yes, sir.
All right. Next item, we don't have a public hearing today. We've already had a public hearing for the budget. We'll go to our old business, and we'll have our second reading and adoption of our budget ordinance, and any discussions on that. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the county manager for a brief update, and then we'll open it up for discussion prior to going into requesting a motion to vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You have before you two budgets, so you can see the movement that has occurred from the May 1 meeting to today. The first budget was the budget presented to you all on May 1, and you issued instructions on that date regarding the early debt payoff fund, the debt service fund, to reduce that amount and to apply that across several different departments. That was done, and that is the second budget that you have in your packet. The first one is the unchanged budget, and it has a cover sheet to it so you can identify it. The second one is the changed budget, and it has a cover sheet and you can identify it. And I will indicate to you what has been changed in that budget. If you'll turn to page 4 of the budget ordinance, it gives a listing of departments and totals by departments. The budget has been changed per your instructions for the ambulance and the rescue squad and the animal shelter, as well as some special appropriations that you see for the library and the line item called special appropriations at the very bottom. And that is for the home health, and I believe that's it. The health department we looked at, and we did not make any changes there, but this budget does balance itself. We did take some funds to look at some radio replacements and put those funds in the vehicle and asset column for a unified public works radio system. But we complied with your instructions. We reduced the debt accordingly and then applied those funds to give everyone additional monies in the new budget that is marked changed and has that cover sheet in front of it.
All right, thank you, County Manager. There's been some discussions among the board as to some potential needs we think we need to address, and it's been brought to my attention that there's a request for an additional $50,000 to be reduced from the debt service, which would leave about $100,000 appropriate for applying to debt service for this year. And I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Jernigan if you want to talk about that a little more before we.
I've been contacted and talked to by several of the departments. There was approximately $200,000 or $208,000 that was put in that debt service. That was, I guess you call it a cushion or money that could be put on debt services later on. I feel like that $208,000 was taken from some of our departments when it probably maybe didn't need to be taken. And that's what, they moved 50,000 of that 208. They moved 50,000 at the first reading to be redistributed to some of the departments that felt like they were being shortchanged. I'll use that word. And in talking to some of the other departments, I felt like maybe some more of this money needs to be moved. And I talked with the chairman, Mr. Jordan, and let him know how I felt. And I also talked with Mr. Mendenhall about the same thing. I really feel like we have shortchanged our departments in some way in taking this money and putting it on debt services. As many of you remember, last year we did take some money and we put extra money on debt services, but we took it out of the fund balance. And I have no problem with that. My problem is taking it from our departments when they need this money. Just like Timmy was talking about, he had places that he had budgeted and it was taken away. I know I said, and of course Mr. Horace said, you got to remember a budget is a tool that you work with. You come back and you look at it and you might have to add money to it, to some places that are low. Mr. Mendenhall when talking with him, he says, what we tried to do was to tighten that budget so at the end of the year, Sandy doesn't have to go there and move a lot of money around, and it makes it a little bit tighter. So my recommendation to Mr. Jordan and to the county manager was to move another $50,000 out of that debt service. That was out of the 200, was to take another $50,000 and put that towards some of these other things that has been reduced. One of them being the GETS program. I would like to see out of that 50,000, I'd like to see 25 put back into GETS. And I'd also like to see 25 put back to the water department for Timmy's use in certainly required areas of testing our county water and buying of chemicals to go into our water. These are requirements, state and federal. Some of them probably are federal requirements also. So that would be my recommendation at this time. And certainly, I'd like to hear some more comments from our other county commissioners.
All right. John, you're looking, I guess.
Oh, yeah, well, from the standpoint of talking about debt payment, obviously I'm a very, that is the number one thing that's on my priority is paying our debt down. And as Kenny said, it did come out of fund balance. Now, you talk about the 208,000, we moved 50. I would prefer that we had, if we were gonna do that, that we had what's called a contingency. And then that gave the situation that, because we all need to be responsible and look at our expenditures. As I said, budget is a tool. But when you come back to me and you have a legitimate complaint or a legitimate need, the money's there to appropriate. It needs to be signed off. You don't have a blanket check. If I give you 15, you're gonna spend 15. Let's try to operate within a reasonable amount because there's a lot of fat. There's still a lot of flat. And if you don't believe it, look around. And the main thing is being open and honest with yourself and with your people when they have legitimate concerns. And when my kid comes to me and asks me for some dollars and it's legitimate, I want to be involved in that process. I don't want to just give it to him and let him go out there and just, hey, sign off on it. So we need to do that, and that's a good thing. Talking about the water department, if you remember last July, we raised rates. And I made a thing based on the 3-year average consumption of water in this county. It would generate 209,000. I don't know how much it is. Can you tell me, Sandy, about how much extra revenue we've generated? So, from that standpoint, what Earl said is exactly right. That's an enterprise fund. The same thing applies. When you have a legitimate need, that's just an accounting issue. If you have a concern and it's legitimate, that's the stroke of a pen taken care of with the county commissioners. So, these things are all necessary, but then you look at the things that have been done here. I got John to get me fund balances of some of these organizations. You take, for instance, now Ms. Famelaw was complaining, and I hate to bring it up, about the library. Well, the Albemarle Regional Library has $1,577,000 in fund balance. We got $3 million. Now, what do you think should happen here? Should it be the county? Should The library will be able to absorb $6,000 if they need it. You know, so you look at through these fund balances and all, and so that becomes a concern to me. We're all in a team in this together. Everybody has a share. Don't be looking for me every time. Do something for yourself. Help yourself. Become efficiency. When you have a new building, and I think about the old courthouse. There's more square foot in the new building, but tell me how many cubic feet there are. There's a difference. Heating is based not on square foot, but on cubic feet. And how many of you know where the hot air goes? Where do you think it's at right now? Other than this, I'm down here, don't get me wrong, but where do you think the real air is at? I bet $1 that it's 5 to 10 degrees hotter up there than it is right here. Anybody want to say that? Well, the vents are there, so maybe that might not be true, but in retrospect, that's what happens. So I have no problem with doing that, putting $50,000, but I don't want to put it, I would rather put it in a contingency plan that they come to Mr. Mendenhall and say, hey, I need this. Mr. Mendenhall signs off, and then money is spent. The adjustment line items made, and there we go, if that's what it is, and that's true. Because my plan on debt service is to pay it out of fund balance. That's what it's there for. Using fund balance is not a dirty word. It's a cash management position. And we need to do that. That is where the big dollars. Last year, over $1 million savings to the taxpayers of this county, just from some simple little mechanics. $1 million. And you think about that to Gates County, that's anywhere from 8 to 10% of your total fund, depending on whether you're talking about general or whether you talk the total composition of $13 million. That's a lot of money. And it's easily done. You just had to be proactive and think about it. And definitely want us to be on that program again this time, because there's still some money on the table that we can get there. But with what Kenny says, I don't have any problem with that. I don't necessarily say we go throw it in one place. Let's take it out of debt service, move it into an operating contingency place, line item.
Mr. Mendenhall, is there a code for what Mr. Hoare was talking about? Contingency. Is there a place to put that?
There is not currently a contingency fund built to this budget. It is a typical thing that is done. It's not anything
It's something
more.
we can do.
That's correct. You'd have to set up a new accounting object code, a new contingency fund, if you will. There's already what we call a sustainability fund, and that's on page 5. You could make the addition to the sustainability fund and operate it as a contingency fund. For your information, sustainability has sustainable projects where you spend $1 to save 5, and then it has the health insurance sustainability to sort of give you a rate level.
Do you, as our manager, have the authority to go ahead and pay some stuff out of that if needed?
I have for about $10,000 of that fund.
Yeah, 10
Okay.
grand.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
What John's referring to on the contingency plan is we really already have a contingency plan, don't we, John?
Yeah, we do.
It's called budget amendment. Is what it's
That's right.
called.
Out of fund balance.
Out of
Or-
fund balance
or
or
adjustments.
we find the money somewhere else.
Yes.
So contingency plan already exists. You know, in our budget process, we attempted to look at all of our departments and say, I wonder if we can save some money. That's what we did. And the department heads came back and did a great job. And now we're undoing some of that hard labor to where they looked at their programs. Tim is doing a great job. I told him yesterday that he was doing a great job with our water department. Still believe that. But when he called me, I also told him, I said, you know, if you have he was talking about unforeseen water breaks. And they're all unforeseen, because if we knew where they were, we'd go fix them before it happened. So they're all unforeseen, and the two that he brought to my attention were not budgeted for, so we took dollars and did the repairs. So I would like, where the water department is concerned, I would just like for Tim to know that, you know, when an issue like that occurs, it's county water line, we're here to make sure it gets repaired. On the GITS issue, did anybody hear what they would do with that additional $25,000?
I think we talked about that. John, I made a note of it somewhere.
I know that in the GITS program, we are, I think, you know, it's federal dollars, but we give like, I forget what the number is, John, don't know if you have it there or not, but there's like a percentage, I think, that we give. I mean, is that percentage changing? Are they gonna buy 2 new vehicles? Are they gonna buy 1 new vehicle with that money? Or are they adding employees? Because see, when I look at that, my question would be to GITS, and I think they do a great job, Patrice does a great job as well. But if she submitted a budget that she could work with, why do we need $25,000 more added to that? I don't quite understand that.
I think the discussion this morning centered around the fact that in order to meet the budget that she has, that some services would be cut. That's currently being provided, and the $25,000 would allow them to continue the services that they provide, because, see, they charge fares for some of the services, but they don't cover all the expenses. So they would have to cut some in order to meet what she's presented, but she could restore some of those. with
So I wouldn't think that she could refuse a request anyway, as far as, you know, it being federally funded. If someone calls and says, I need transportation from here to there, I wouldn't think she could refuse it anyway. And if she needed more money for fuel, because fuel prices are up, or if she were adding another employee or adding a vehicle, then I could see a $25,000 climb. But I thought the original budget was a good budget, and my comments on the first 50,000 was that, you know, do we have to? Yeah, we're going to put the 50 out there. We don't need to spend it all. Now we're coming back with the second 50. I'd rather help the water and sewer department with budget amendments. I do know that debt reduction is going to come up later in the year, to where we're going to be asked to say, hey, let's put a few more dollars there. I like the budget that we have now. And I think that's all I've got to say. If I hear something from you guys that changed my mind, I may feel different.
All right, we have 3 opinions.
Mr.
Kenny?
Jordan?
Yes. All right.
Don't forget Ms. Howard.
Yes, indeed.
Certainly, I thought we had a good budget, and I can understand after looking at the first one that certainly there were some areas that we might have made adjustments in, which we did. Now, of course, this morning we're coming back with more adjustments. And of course, throughout the year, we're going to make adjustments in the budget.
Right.
Concerning the water, my understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, that is the enterprise fund, correct?
Correct.
And that is self-supporting.
Has to be.
And so I know that we have taken some funds from that to cover administrative things that the county provides for the water. And and of course, none of us know what the future holds. That could be our emergency. But I don't see where that necessarily needs any more funds right now. Because if you look at their fund balance, it's pretty healthy, in my opinion. I'm not sure about GETS. I'm kind of like Commissioner Owens. I'd like to know what 25,000 was going to be for. But You know, I do like the budget as it is, but I'm certainly willing to, if y'all have any compelling arguments. I think water, though, could be self-supportive, or should be self-supportive.
Okay, all right, we've got 4.
Waiting on the fifth one.
I guess the last one here. Well, I've heard a lot, and I somewhat agree with everything that's been said. I do think that a good way to move forward would be to put $50,000 in a contingency from the debt set-off or debt service payments, and not specifically address the specific departments that's been named, but have those funds there in case there is a need that the county manager, we could address those fairly quickly. And that way, you know, we would have the funds there. Of course, we've got them in fund balance as well, but I kind of agree with Commissioner Jernigan that, you know, if we're going to pay off debt, we probably don't need to try to take it from the departments unless there is a lot of excess, but take it from fund balance. But this way, you know, we can make it a contingency and use it as necessary. So that's what I would like to see. Of course, we're going to open it up for a motion to adopt the budget as it is, a motion to adopt it with a modification for a $50,000 contingency, or if you want to specifically designate it. So those are possibly the 3 options that we have. So at this time, I would call for a motion to adopt the 2013 and 14 Gates County budget.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Commissioner Jernigan's comments, and what he's doing is he's, like all of us, he's listening to the people who've approached him, and he's brought that, like he should, he's brought it to the table, and given us all the opportunity to discuss it and let the public hear what we think about it. I will reiterate that I thought the first budget was good. We've adjusted that, and I guess we'll call this the changed budget. Would that be proper, John?
Yes, sir, it would be helpful if you would specify changed or unchanged, or if you make another
Okay.
addition.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I move that we accept the changed 2013-2014 budget.
As is, without further changes.
The changed without further change.
All right. Have a motion on the floor. Have a second.
I'll second that.
Are there any further discussion? All right, hear none. Call for the vote. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
4 to 1. All right, we have an approved 2013-14 county budget, and it will be implemented as changed from the first reading. Okay, thank you so much. Our next item would be consideration of appointment to the various boards. And at this time, you have in your package a list of affected boards. I do want to make all the board aware that at our last meeting, we tasked our clerk to talk with medical representatives for our East Carolina Behavioral Health Board, and I see that Mrs. Leslie Blow has accepted, and that board is currently filled. to where it should be,
The medical, yes.
with the medical. How about financial?
I gave to Mr. Mendenhall a letter from Dan Esper, he would accept the position.
All right. All those,
It's after the board packets went out.
okay. So do we have any other openings on that board?
No.
All right, we have a medical and financial. We are aware that there's a resolution out there where the General Assembly is being asked to allow additional members to the board so that county commissioners can serve. So there may be some more changes in the future, I believe that's right, county manager. Okay, our first board will be our zoning board. And zoning board of adjustments. And we have here, are you familiar with this?
Sure, yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we talked about this at the last meeting on May 1, and there was some confusion over what has occurred. We believe that it began with an appointment term issue because everyone is on staggered terms, and somehow it snowballed from there into that a alternate was elevated to the position of a regular board member. So you have 4 points for you to consider this morning that would correct those situations, would get us back on staggered terms, and would correct the appointment of the alternate. You'd have to ratify some action that occurred in the past, and I'll read those 4 actions for you. Mrs. Kathy Radmore should be appointed as a regular member from her current position as an alternate for the remainder of her 3-year term. Reappoint Dan Lang to a 3-year term. His term was, he was originally appointed for a 1-year term, and each continuing term is a 3-year term. And reappointing Terry Ure to a 3-year regular term, and then appointing 2 alternates to replace the 2 alternates that were elevated up. And then that should correct that board as it stands.
Do we have names for the alternates?
We do not, no, sir. We haven't received applications or made it known that we're seeking alternates at this time.
So we need to make that advertisement.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you've heard the presentation. We need to ratify Ms. Kathy Radmore from an alternate position to serve the remainder of a 3-year term expiring in June 2015. We need to reappoint Mr. Dan Lang to a regular 3-year term and reappoint Mr. Terry Ure to a 3-year regular term. And we will advertise for 2 alternates, and they will come back, we'll get those back possibly for our July meeting. So what is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion that we make Kathy Redmond, Dan Lang, and Terry Ure, appoint them to the Board of Adjustments.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you. Okay, next item will be our Gates County Planning Department Board. And we have here, excuse me, Mr. Lynn Hobbs' 2nd term expires the end of May, expired the end of May. And Ms. Rita Lane also. And we have applications for the 2 positions from Phyllis Hobbs, Jerry Freeman, Sidney Pierce, and Graham Twine. So if you've looked at those, we will open the floor for nominations for those 2 positions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to nominate Phyllis Hobbs.
All right, Phyllis Hobbs has been nominated.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Freeman from the Gates District.
All right.
Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Graham Twine.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I'd like to move that the nominations be closed.
Second.
All right. Been motion second that nominations be closed on the said three names. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, we'll take them, I guess, first to replace Mr. Lynn Hobbs. We have Phyllis Hobbs, J. Ray Freeman, and Graham Twine. All in favor of Phyllis Hobbs replacing Lynn Hobbs, let it be known by raising your hand. How many we have? Four? All right. All opposed? Like sign? Okay. 4 to 1 to replace Lynn. Okay. All right, the next position would be Ms. Rita Lane. All in favor of J.R. Freeman, let it be known by raising your hand. One, two, four.
You voted yes.
Yes. And all opposed? One. All right. The replacements for the Gates County Planning Board would be Ms. Phyllis Hobbs and J.R. Freeman. All right. That takes care of that. Board? Okay, the next one. Is that the end of the boards?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the next will be the consideration of finalizing our library dedication plaque. You have it before you. This is the one that was changed. And it's being presented to us today to make sure that it's the way the commissioners would like to have it. I'll just make one comment before we just start discussing it. I think the changes have been done well. Where you have the commissioners, I do recommend that the year that the past commissioners signed should be annotated, because the way it stands now, it looks like we have about a 7-committee board. And either put them under past Commissioner Chairman Twine with the year that they served, 2010, which I believe would be for both. But that's just my observation, and we'll open it up for discussion.
I think that's a good observation there, Henry.
Okay?
I hadn't seen that, but
The end of their term.
Right, the end of the term,
End of
20.
their term.
Right.
Okay.
Would you have, so you would move Wade Askew and Carlton Nickens
Under,
from their location and put them under Chairman Twine?
yes,
Okay. Would you, and you'd have, well, yeah, you would have the date out there at the end of each one.
right,
Okay.
and you also want to put commissioner.
Right, yeah.
You got that, Diane? All right, any other discussions on?
so what we're doing is just moving the Wade and Carlton right below Graham.
Right,
One on one side, one on the other.
well, it could be
To
done, in-
balance it off rather than
it
having.
could be done that way.
Yeah. No, just take that line and move it down 3 lines.
Right,
with the word commissioner
and year.
and year,
Right,
2010.
right. Got that? All right, there, any further discussion? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adopt or accept the plaque for the library as revised.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right. Okay, our next item would be our new business. We have a consideration of a request to surplus lawn maintenance equipment. Turn it over to County Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have before you a request to surplus some lawn maintenance equipment, a lawnmower that is not operational. It was replaced in the spring of this year with a newer mower that was bought locally. But this one is in inventory, it's taking up space. My recommendation to you is to surplus it without delay.
I guess, Ken, this is one of, would we get better service out of scrapping it, or?
That's sort of what I was wondering, Henry. Would it be better just to carry it straight to the recycler and get what you could get by weighing it? I really don't know.
Is there a way we?
Well, only thing that I see with this now, and this really bothers me a little bit, 621.9 hours. Well, if you go talk to Alex Chapel and some other people, how many hours you think they get out of their equipment?
2,000 or 3,000 at least.
That's right. So, you know, this kind of bothers me when I see that. And that's just a face observation. Now, I don't know, I'm not around it and whatever, but I do know when you put 621 hours on it, on this machine, and it's a bush hog, they're heavy-duty machines, that number should be in the 2,000 to 3,000 range. So, are we not taking care of our equipment, or what?
Well, what concerns me, Johnny, being you brought it up, is we've owned it for 10 years, according to this. It says we purchased it 10 years ago. So we only used it 62 hours a year.
Already got 100 hours on mine.
Well,
Boy, less than 2 years.
well, that's another observation, Jack, but, so if you take the total initial cost and divide it by 621 hours, that depreciation line cost, you know, those are the things you start looking at and putting them in perspective. But the thing that concerns me, if I got 621 and I need to replace it, something to me don't seem to be quite balancing out with the way I know that a bush hog machine would run. I guarantee if I buy one, I'm gonna get more than 621 hours out of it. Well, I won't buy another one.
Yeah. All right, was there any recommendation? as to-
I would guess that you're gonna get $40 out of it if you scrap it, weight-wise. The time they allow for the rubber wheels and.
So we probably do better advertising.
I think you would probably do better to advertise
On
it,
this one.
on that particular lawnmower.
Yeah, I think Ken made a comment a couple of meetings ago, I think, about the scrap. And I think where we're gonna be better on the scrap is when it's a vehicle. And other items just go the regular surplus route. Mr. Chairman, in this case, I move that we take the county manager's recommendation.
All right,
Second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. Our next item would be Budget Amendment 51 to reallocate capital funds for the sewer project.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
And I may add, if you would, address all the way through 56.
Okay, we can go right through them all if you'd rather.
Okay.
Okay. Budget amendment number 51 is to transfer money from the general fund and water fund to the wastewater treatment facility project. When the capital budget was put in place for this project, there were general fund monies and water fund monies budgeted to move over. We did part of that last year. It was not included in the 12-13 budget, so about $39,000 of this money was originally included in the budget. The additional are grant funds that money that we've spent that we've not received back from grant funds yet, that we should get reimbursed next fiscal year, and at that point, we can do the transfer of that money back to the general fund and water fund to cover the differences. Okay, number 52, at the end of fiscal year 12, there was about $16,000 in fire department fees that had been received that did not get paid out until fiscal year 13. So we just had to do the amendment to pull that money back out of fund balance, the fire fund balance, to make those payments. Number 53 is to reallocate the water and sewer fund to cover some shortfalls and overages in different line items in that fund. Number 54 is to reallocate the departmental budgets within the general fund, basically to clean up for the end of the year. I see you smiling over there, Johnny. Some of these are things that couldn't be helped. Some of them were just, things that came up. The increase in revenues, the state and federal admin is to cover about 50% of the increases in the social services department. School-age child care increased revenue covers the increase in expenditures in that program, which is also self-supporting. The EMPG grant, those are additional funds that we received for the 12-13 year. We get estimated numbers at the beginning of the year for that grant, and then we get a final payout that usually comes in April or May. So we received $7,502 more than we budgeted for that grant this year. The line under that, the fund balance appropriated, is the EMPG grant funds that were received late in 11-12 that were budgeted but not spent in 11-12. And Billy has asked that we carry forward that money into this year, and I believe next year he'll be back to ask that all this money be carried forward, because I don't believe he'll be able to spend it before the end of the year. Number 55 is to reallocate the budget for the solid waste fund to move some money into the equipment and vehicles capital lines. And number 56 is to allocate the merit increases. You all have budgeted the one line, and then we reallocated at the end of the year into the different departments. The other thing that's included in here are the increases to the Sheriff's Department, the reclassifications that were approved last July. They're also included here. There was no funds included in the budget to cover those increases, so I've used merit funds that were left over to cover those increases as well. Are there any questions?
I just have one question over on, it was just one little thing, it said well site.
Was that in the water?
It's under water, number 53.
53?
Yeah, over the past years, we have budgeted money each year to set aside to purchase an additional well site. Timmy has since decided that we do not need that well site, so the money was pulled out of that line to cover other shortfalls in his budget.
So he didn't think that we'll, a new well site for a right good period of time?
Apparently. He's already left. That's what he's told me,
Okay.
that money didn't need to be included in the budget.
All right, that's good to know.
Yes, and it was not included in the 13-14 budget either.
Okay, I mean, it was a small item, but I just,
Right.
okay, that's all I have.
Do we have anything on that line item for this year?
No, sir.
Okay.
All right, we have before us budget amendments 51 through 56. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the budget amendments as presented.
Second?
There's been motion and second. All in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. All right, the next item on our agenda is consideration to allow employees to voluntarily and individually participate in the North Carolina Public Employee Deferred Compensation Plan. I believe, Leah, do you want to address that?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Right now, our employees, full-time employees, are eligible to participate in the 401K plan, and this 457 plan is an additional tax shelter that is offered by Prudential, who we are already working with directly. George Davis is our representative. And the biggest difference between the 457 and the 401K is that, as far as the plan is concerned, not Gates County, it is available to part-time, full-time, retirees, and elected officials. And it would just be another tax shelter for employees, another benefit. It may be a way for us to retain good employees that are looking for these types of benefits. And also, regardless of age, there is no tax penalty, the 10% federal tax penalty when you withdraw, as long as the employee is separated from service or if they are retired, they will not incur that 10% fee. And that occurs with the 401K. So that is another savings for our employees. And it's no cost to the county.
How about administratively?
No, sir. I already do the payroll deductions, and I already submit the report to Prudential, so there would be no additional administrative fees.
I did observe that in the application that we have, it would appear to me, and this is probably just a sample, but these questions need to be answered. If we adopt this, it says questions like, will you allow members to select flat dollar percentage or both for contributions? So is that zero? I mean, how did we address that?
I'm not exactly sure what application you're referring to. I don't believe I have a copy of that.
Yeah, actually, what Henry's referring to is,
Okay.
I would call it page 3.
Yeah.
And what that percentage is, you just color in that block, it says, we're gonna use a percentage or a dollar.
And right, and actually with our current 401K, we give the employee the option to do a percentage of their gross pay, or to do a flat fee, like say they just want to do $50 a month. Because with the 401K and with the 457, there's no minimum balance, you can actually start the account if the employee want to just put $10 a month in the account. So I believe it is just like the 401K, where it's given the percentage or the flat fee option.
Well, yeah, and the question is asking to the commissioners, as we approve this, will you allow this? So we're gonna allow all three.
Okay.
Is that,
Yes, sir.
We don't-
Yes.
okay. All right. What waiting period, if any, will you impose on this plan? Are we imposing a 365, a 30? I mean, these are just questions that, once we approve this,
Right.
then who will, if someone's gonna have to say,
Well, I think the part that you're approving is the front part, saying that you'll allow employees to contribute, and then that back is the paperwork that we have to complete, saying how our payroll deductions will work. The waiting period, we don't have any waiting period for our benefits for our employees, other than the flexible spending account.
so it'll be immediate?
Correct. And I think the back part is the administrative paperwork. The front part is the part that you all have to approve and sign off on.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, on the, I guess it's the third page, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, on the 4th page where, hey, will you fund your contribution? And it's got check, ACH wire, ACH debit, but isn't the county gonna do that?
Yes, payroll.
And I think that's the administrative end when they're asking us, we already
Okay.
have all this set up for the 401K,
All right.
so it'll fall right in line with that. Do everything electronically with them,
Right.
they draft our account.
With that, it was just my thoughts that we would have addressed those recognizing the first part is what we are approving, but the commissioners would have some idea as to how it's going to be set up,
So,
when it's implemented. Because right now, we're approving it, but we really don't know what process you're going to use.
I'm sorry, and I didn't realize that you all would want to have all the details from the day-to-day operations. I would have completed that before it went to you.
Okay.
so the percent too can also be 100% long as you, and this is outside the scope of this, as long as you don't exercise excess contributions into a retirement plan, which is a combination of any kind of plans.
The employee can contribute up to 17.5 in the 457 and 17.5 in the 401K.
They can do both?
Yes, sir. This type of account is only offered to public North Carolina employees, and so they have a tax shelter up to $34,000 if they so choose to.
This is not a retirement plan.
It's a 457 deferred compensation.
But it's after,
It is pre-tax, or just like the 401K, it can be Roth contributions. I believe that we were under the impression this would be mirrored similar to the 401K. That's why I was just outlining some of the differences that the account actually offers, but administratively, I believe our intent was to mirror it like the 401K.
I wasn't aware of that. So you can actually contribute 35,000 then by doing it through this plan.
Okay, you can do 17.5 in the 401K and 17.5 in the 457. So together, yes, you can do 35.
But when you're drawing out, you would have to pay taxes at that time where you,
If they are pre-tax contributions, when you make your withdrawals, either from the 401K or the 457, they will be taxed. But the difference is with the 457, if you retire before the age of 55, or if you are not of the age of 59 and a half, regardless of whether you're retired or not, you do not have to pay the 10% tax penalty.
And it's also subject to the 70 and a half age.
Required yes, qualified retired distribution.
And if you are 55 and older, you can spread that tax over a 5-year period.
Right, and maybe I should have mentioned this in the beginning. Originally, this plan was designed for employees that retire before the age of 55. Many times we have employees that come to work for the local government after high school or very early, right after college. And the thing is, they retire before they're actually 55 and they can't access their 401K. This is a plan designed to have a bucket they can dump out to get them over the hill to 55 and 59 and a half, or until they can access their 401K.
And what are the investment options?
The investment options are similar to the 401K. The employee can choose what investments they want, or they can also use Goldmaker, which is an option that Prudential provides. And the plan, just like the 401K, is overseen by the Board of Trustees. So the same board is overlooking the 401K and the 457, and they're going to make sure, they do their due diligence with the investment options.
Okay, with Prudential holding it, then are all the Prudential options available?
Yes,
to
sir.
choose?
Yes, sir. They can.
Okay. Yeah.
It's very similar to the 401K.
One thing I would encourage you to do, I don't know if you want to mandate it or not, county manager, but a lot of companies mandate that the employee open an online account. Okay, so that they always have access to it, because there are a lot of things they'll be able to do on their own.
Right.
And I don't know if we want to mandate that or not, but it would be very helpful to administratively, because you can refer them to that, because there are some things that they need to be looking at their account,
Right.
and you won't be able to look at their account with them. But that would be very helpful if you would strongly encourage it, if not mandate it.
Yes, sir. And although this is not online, they will receive quarterly statements, just like the 401K with the 457.
all right? Any other comments, questions? All right, we have this new 457 plan, deferred compensation plan for our employees. Attached to that is a board resolution on your last page. Just whereas the state of North Carolina has established the North Carolina Public Employee Deferred Compensation Plan, a qualified governmental deferred compensation plan under Internal Revenue Code 457B for public employees. Therefore, be it resolved that as the Gates County Commissioners has adopted the North Carolina Public Employee Deferred Compensation Plan, also known as NC Deferred Comp. Under the terms of the plan document and third-party administrative agreement, all employees shall become eligible to defer compensation immediately. So I think what we want, or a waiting period,
No, sir.
immediately. All right, what is the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Second.
All right, so motion is second, any further discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed, nay. Thank you, Leah. All right, the next item on our agenda would be the consideration of the 2013 County Records Retention and Disposition Schedule. I'm going to turn this over to County Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have before you the 2013 Records Management and Retention Disposition Schedule. We are required to adopt this schedule annually as it's changed as to how we govern our public records and the terms for which public records must be kept and on file in the various county offices, and in turn how they're disposed of at the end of their useful life to the public. It goes without saying that all of our records are available for public inspection unless they're qualified and exempt, and there are only certain exemptions, some of which being personnel-related records, as well as other types of records. So this policy is adopted annually or as needed, and is based on the guidance from the Department of Archives, and it's presented for you today to adopt so we can be in compliance with their guidance.
All right. We have before you the Records Retention Plan. Certainly, we need to get rid of as much hard paper as we can for storage space.
Mr. Chairman, I strained my back just picking the document up. I did look at it, and I move that we accept it.
All right. All right. It's been moved to second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. Thank you. All right. The next item would be budget amendment number 57. I think that has to do with NC Fast. And
Got it, coming.
Okay.
Does everybody have the copy? Okay. Budget amendment number 57 is to reallocate funds within the Social Services Department to cover the purchase of a new phone system and also some new desktop scanners and monitors for some of the employees there. Some of the money will come from state and federal, will reduce the amount of state and federal admin money that we'll receive because of the percentages, but we are using lapsed salaries to cover the increased costs here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I want to bring you up to date as to what's going on in the Department of Social Services because it's very positive, and we talked about continuous improvement earlier this morning. There's a program, and I'm not technically savvy enough to speak on it. I think Mr. Merritt is probably the expert on it. He's immersed himself in it. But it's a program called NC Fast, and what that does is it makes things go paperless. It increases the availability of documents in a digital format as opposed to a paper format. And it's designed to increase efficiency, to also increase the availability of certain documents, and to increase the ability to share documents within the department as well as across the health and human services spectrum. And it's being rolled out, and it requires all number of things, including better communication, better data availability, meaning that we have to have the network capacity to handle this new traffic on the network. We get reports fairly regularly. I'm not sure how they're scheduled, but we get reports fairly regularly that indicate that we're in the bottom tier of counties so far as our data speed. And data speed is key because it allows these employees to fill these documents out, and they have to go from page to page online and fill out the documents. So the slower it is, the more frustrating it is for employees, and it slows down the process and lags and pulls down our efficiency. So that is going on, as well as the telephone system, which would replace the current system and bring that system up to allow more available lines and less wait times. When you call social services, it should be a positive benefit that you'll be able to get through to someone. And then the desktop scanners roll into NC Fast as well. But I think it's something very positive that's going on. Mr. Merritt and I have been working very closely, and it's taken a lot of time of his to get these proposals and these pricings, and we have put that in this budget amendment for you all today.
All right, do you have anything to add?
County Commissioners, County Manager. I'd just like to reiterate what John said. Chase, as well as myself, and in communication with John, we have been very diligently trying to find money within our current budget to be able to meet some of the needs with this very drastic change that is occurring and is mandated to occur within the Department of Social Services called NC Fast, which is an acronym for North Carolina Families Accessing Services Through Technology. I think it's very appropriate that our records retention and disposition schedule came almost right in front of this. Something that we are trying to do is to take away from our old business process of being very paper intensive and paper dependent, and utilizing that to technology. With some of these scanners, that what it would do, some of the documents that we needed for the programs that have rolled out in NC Fast, Food Nutrition Services began last year. We will have our Medicaid program, Work First, Refugee Assistance, Work First Employment, will be coming on board starting August 19th, when we'll start taking applications. Hard launch sometime later in the year on the other recertification parts, which we will be able to take those documents, scan them into the computer, store them digitally, instead of having to keep those documents for record retention schedules of 3, 10 years, depending on what the program is, and having to go in and take administrative time to purge and things such as that. Our telephone system as well, we discussed this when the budget proposals were occurring, I believe back in March. We currently only have 4 telephone lines. With those telephone lines, that is for 20 employees. That is also for other agencies such as the Sheriff's Department, who may need to call to speak to one of my social workers to come to a situation where there's an imminent threat of safety to a child or an adult. Other public agencies who call us, and most importantly, the citizens of our county who access our services. That also goes back and look internally with employees and their access to the telephone lines, having 4, basically I call it telephone hawking, seeing when the light goes out, you push the button as fast as you can to try to get your telephone line. So that is something that we have, this is just not the first proposal that we got. Chase and myself have been discussing this for months, researching and trying to find the best product that would suit us for the most efficient price. The one you have before you is 50% less than the other quote that we have, and will meet our needs and keep us within our budget for the upcoming year for the cost of the services that we will be utilizing, which the proposals that I've given my board from that previous quote would have required extra monies to not only purchase the telephone system, but also to maintain the budget to pay for those services. And if there's any other questions I can answer, I will be happy to do that.
All right, any questions from the board? All right, we have Budget Amendment 57 before us. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept Budget Amendment 57 as presented.
Second. All right, been motion second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay.
I'd like to thank you on behalf of me and my staff for your assistance with helping us move forward in this new venture in our agency. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Jeff. All right, the last item on our agenda would be our Personnel Board recommendations. And I believe, do we have a copy of that?
That is one here, but I don't,
Okay.
yeah, I done put it in my papers.
Okay, the Personnel Board consists of the county manager, the chairman, and one commissioner. We held a meeting on June the 3rd. It was somewhat of an impromptu, and we had two present, but with some issues that we needed to address. The first issue had to deal with employees who transfer to Gates County or have credible previous experience from another county or entity belonging to the local government employees retirement system, that they are eligible to transfer their years of service for the purpose of earning vacation leave and longevity. This is effective January 1, 2013. And as you'll see there, it says an employee had questioned if their time with the school system would be recognized because item 6.2M of the ordinance states Gates County will accept a transfer of unused vacation leave from another local or state government employee as long as the unused balance is no more than 3 years. A letter must be received from the previous employer stating the amount of vacation leave to be transferred. After discussion, Mr. Jordan made a motion that item 613 will remain as stated, local government employees retirement system. Mr. Mendenhall second the motion. Basically, what we're asking the board today is the fact that if someone transfers from another local government employees retirement system, then we would honor those years of service. But if it's not the local government employees retirement system, then you would not honor those years of service. So it basically stays as it is. It's a clarification, and no changes will be made unless the board sees different.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I don't understand something. If I was in Hereford County working for social services, I transferred here, my years of experience, my longevity, my vacation would transfer. But if I work for the Department of Human Resources in Raleigh on the state level, they would not transfer?
For longevity, that's true, because it's a different retirement system. Although the changes are small, it would not be parallel. And what you would be doing is you would be saying that I have 3 years there, or 4 years, and you would add those years here to the county. Well, in reality, you couldn't do that because you got two different retirement systems. Now, if you wanted to hold that, if you had 5 years, you could hold that to your age 60 or whatever that qualifies, and you could draw for that individually, but you can't merge those. So from a longevity standpoint, it would not be acknowledged by the county, nor would you recognize it through leave transfer. Basically, we stay as it is.
Well, the only thing I see with that, and I agree with this, is obviously I'm taking on a liability created in another government entity. And to me, there should be a transfer. In other words, if the employee doesn't get that payout at termination or resignation, then to me, I would think the other county should appropriate those like dollars into the going, and a rollover more or less of capital, of money. to a certain extent. And I do see we have, what, 30-day maximum there? Well, now that's 30-day maximum is 30 work days. So that's, what's that? 1.5 months of salary, basically, is what that amounts to. Plus, well, you can look at the benefit side of it. I mean, you could, even though that's a fixed cost, but it's definitely a direct cost of those productivity days.
And to get back to Commissioner Hoffler, if you were a state government employee, if you had vacation time, you could bring that in, because that's a payout, you know, but for longevity.
Okay. So I could bring my vacation, like if I had 10 days of vacation, I could bring that with me to my new job.
Right. As it's currently written now, you could do that.
Okay.
But as far as longevity, you could not add that. The county would not recognize adding that for the purposes of retirement system.
Let me ask you this, would you as an employee of, let's say Hertford County, and I had 30 days of vacation, if I resign or I'm terminated, do I have I would get paid for that? When I'm not terminated, you probably wouldn't. You would probably lose that, right? But if I resign, would I I could request a check, right?
Typically, Commissioner, most employees are paid out because it's a liability on the books. Now, some places will transfer the vacation, but most of the time, the vacation is paid out, and it's a zero vacation number. It really comes into play with sick time. And in North Carolina, sick time can roll into a retirement year served. Sick time is usually the one that's transferred because there's no payout of it, but usually vacation is you're paid out and your balance is zero when you leave.
So is this thing right here when it says this, transfer of unused vacation, or should it be reflective of sick time?
The sick time is in the personnel ordinance. This vacation time would be any unused vacation if they chose not to be paid out. My understanding is we've had one employee, correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Pittman, one employee request a transfer from here of vacation time. Most employees get it paid.
Right.
So basically, our document is saying that it is remaining the same.
That's correct.
There's no change.
Yeah, they could transfer that unused vacation time if the other agency wanted to do that, and we would receive it. Sick leave, we don't receive sick leave because that's an unpaid liability.
That's correct.
And the county manager is in the process of reviewing our personnel ordinance to make sure that we don't fall into that situation. So, but basically, for clarification today, it's being presented to the board, say that there will not be a change to the current ordinance. The ordinance means that you have to be a local government employee, under the local government employee retirement system in order to transfer longevity,
Years of service.
years of service.
Okay. Do we need a motion, a vote on any of this, or?
This is the recommendation of the personnel board, and we would we bring it to the commissioners to support that recommendation and adopt it, or whatever the pleasure of the board is. Okay, you want to do the rest of them before? All right, that's the first part. Our tax administrator this year was due a merit increase, or last year. Currently, her salary grade is 69AA, and she's reached the end of her salary range and will not be able to receive a merit increase. We took a look at this. We just passed the budget for 2013 and 14, and part of the budget allows a reorganization, which gives us new pay scales, and the tax administrator pay scale will be a 25 on a new scale, which will put her current salary about mid-range or the upper range upward 3/4, if you will. And since that's an adjustment, we could go to the next step of the new salary range. And the board, the personnel board would recommend that you would make that retroactive to November when she was due the merit increase.
Evaluation.
Right, during the evaluation. Since there is a new pay range and which reflects the difficulty and skill of the job as well.
Is that new scale, John, going to have, is it all numeric, or is it numeric A, B, C, or UCOM?
It's all numeric. So the columns and the rows are both numeric, so your steps are 1, 2 to 20.
Okay.
And then the grades, I believe, go to 27, 28, maybe 30. I'd have to get that paper to look
So
at.
that's a recommendation from the Personnel Board?
That's the recommendation of the personnel board would be to, well, I could be, more specific. I think that would be, there we go.
So it's grade and step, I see, John, at the bottom here.
Grade
and step.
25, step 13.
Okay. What we have is, grade 25 starts at 44,158, and it goes up to 64. So current salary, it would be, she would have to go to 56,003, and that would incorporate the merit. The only thing you would need to do is to make it retroactive, whereas from November, it would be that salary.
These are North Carolina numbers. You said it was mid-range, it's North Carolina.
Well, this is step 14. Well, actually, it's step 13.
Okay.
All right, that's the,
Mr. Chairman, I move that on both matters, we accept the recommendation of the Personnel Board.
I second.
all right, it's been motion second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay. All right. That completes our agenda. The next item would be comments, citizens' comments, if we have any. Mr. Thomas Hill?
Thank you, Commissioners, for having me back. Just really quickly, the old saying is that if you throw a rock at a pack of wolves, the one you hit is usually the one you help. Mr. Roundtree was certainly very proud of that Republican Ronald Reagan stamp that was sent, but that's okay. Moving on. As far as the line item 18 is concerned, not the new one that you all talked about, but the former one, dealing with Pastor Eric Earhart from Gatesville. You know, as there has been forgiveness about things that have happened to me, the Bible does specifically state to forgive 70 times 7 a day. Now, gentlemen, and madam, that is an awful lot of forgiveness. When you all go into your closed session, I would ask you all to keep in mind this. I'm in full support of this. He's a pillar in the community. He is a pastor here in Gatesville, and he certainly has my support. I would ask that you 5 vote for that as well, for a resolution to go up to Raleigh. And anything that I can personally do as a private citizen or as the chairman of the Republican Party, I would like to do so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, commissioners? Jack, you want to start today?
Yeah, glad to. I want to thank the commissioners for being willing to bring these things to the table. to debate them. I want to thank the phone calls that I received from people concerned about particular line items in the budget, and just thank them for the participation.
All right. Mr. Howard?
I'm not gonna say a whole lot today. I have my say with the budget, and I appreciate everything that was said, and I think we're on track, and very good. Appreciate people being here today. And with that, I will say one thing. I see Mr. Sidney Pierce out here, and I'd like for us to consider him on the Board of Equalization Review if he would so submit his application. Thank you.
No, it's the
Review,
Board of
Board of
Board of
Adjustment.
Adjustments, I'm
Board of
sorry.
Adjustments. All right. Commissioner Journey?
Thank everybody that came today. I was doing a little bit of a head count a while ago. Of everybody here, we had 7 people that are not employees of the county out of, I think, about 14, 15 people. But we do appreciate you coming. Ms. Beasley, she comes and sits and listens. She says very little, but it is nice to know that she is sitting here listening, because she's out in the community talking. I'd like to say I enjoy being able to say that we've got a budget without raising taxes. Other counties are not that fortunate. So thank you for coming, thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting us. Thank you.
I also would like to thank you for coming. The budget process has been a long process. It's probably not a perfect document. I think everybody has worked hard, and everyone has made sacrifices, and as we come, you know, we are always glad to listen to your concerns, keep us in the loop, let us know what you're thinking, what your concerns are, and we'll do the best we can.
Thank you, Commissioners. I too thank everyone for coming today and being a part of our meeting, and thank our employees for the efforts they put forth. It takes a lot of work to get where we are, to get this budget, and I think we've got a good budget, and we'll just try to adhere to it. A couple of announcements I'd like to make, especially while we have the opportunity on camera, is that we have a new Code Red EMS system for the county, and you have to go to the county website and put in an application for this new Code Red. And what it does is it allows the county to notify you by telephone, even by text message, in case if there's an emergency. And it also allows the county to notify the citizens in their particular district. In other words, they don't have to do a robocall to the whole county to let them know that the bridge is out on NC 137. So we encourage everyone to visit the county website and put that application in. Also, we've been informed that North Carolina 137, the Twin Bridge on 137 will be closed for approximately 150 days for repair or upgrade. So the residents in Ure, Gatesville, and whatever will be affected by that. And certainly want you to be aware of that and the detours that are involved. So again, we thank you all for coming today, and we just hope you have a great day. All right. We'll entertain a motion to enter closed session.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion second that we enter closed session. All in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed, nay. We'll take all in favor, aye? Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay, we're out of closed session. We would entertain a motion to authorize the sending of a letter of recommendation for a local resident to the governor.
So moved.
Second.
Actually, motion second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, our second item is we support the adoption of a resolution for a foreign trade zone to include Gates County.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so motion second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, opposed, nay. All right, if there's no other business, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Thank you.